everyone. Welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers. Seekers of happiness and joy. Seekers of a centered approach to success in life. Seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
All right, Melissa, you've been running around doing the leadership development thing.
Yes, I sure have.
For your job.
Which actually is
not just for fun on the side.
Job. Like, that is my job. Right. Yeah. Not just on the side.
So I know that you've been traveling around, you've been meeting with the same companies, a couple different companies, but the same ones, kind of like the same groups of people over and over through the course of like a year or 2 years?
Yep, it's a 3-year program, and we are halfway through right now.
Okay.
And this is not unlike other programs that I've designed and delivered, so it's like, rather than just like a single event, people will go to a seminar or go to whatever, and, you retain less than 5%. But when you get into something like this and you have that longer period of time together where it's multiple sessions and, you kind of build off things, your retention is so much greater. So I've done lots and lots of these, but boy, I sure am really enjoying this one. So
what kind of things do you focus on when you're doing like a leadership development program?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a myriad of topics that companies will choose for what they think their people need the most. So what I will typically do is
like trust falls. Is it trust falls?
Hey, did you ever see that meme where the dude is like, all the people are in the back waiting and he falls forward and there's no one there? That's so unfortunate.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Not that way.
I was actually just kind of, I am joking, but so much of I don't know, corporate development, like employee development, are kind of like these one and done events like you're alluding to.
Yeah.
And I kind of like to make fun of them because just like you're saying, I don't know that they're particularly effective, especially in the long run.
Yeah.
They might have like an impact like, hey, we did the event and then we had a picnic and it was fun and now we're all, understand each other a little bit better. But what I was really curious to talk about, was like more like the long-term effects, because you're like engaged over a way longer period of time than most of those programs run for.
Right. If I could pick anything, it would be this. It would be a 3-year program with the same set of people. If I could pick my second favorite, it would be a year-long event. If I could pick my last favorite, it would be a single session. And I think it just speaks to exactly what you're talking about. It's like, these topics are interesting. Like, so you asked what kind of topics? Well, it really depends. Like what I'll do is I'll talk with companies before I create anything. And I'll say, what do you think is the biggest challenge in your organization? Tell me about your leaders. How are they great? What would make them even better? And, then I'll provide like a list of like 30 or 35 specific topics just to see if they understand what the gaps are, and or if they maybe didn't know what the gaps were, but suddenly it's really helpful because this list will give them like, oh yeah, they could do this, they could do that. But ultimately communication is a huge one. Every single organization that I go in, even if I'm doing strategic planning or if I'm working with companies, the first thing that people will always say is, we could get better at communication.
So is their main thing like, we're not understanding each other, we're not empathetic enough? Like, what about communication are people struggling with?
Yeah, it's a great question. Communication can be, this department doesn't speak to this department well, i.e. sales and operations, i.e. sales and accounting, right?
i.e. sales and everyone.
No, well, sales and marketing. Okay, yes. Yes. No, but it might be department by department, right? It might not be. It might be the leadership doesn't speak in a way that their employees hear them or understand them or retain what they are saying. So often we just think like, oh, we're going to have this conversation on this pod about leadership development, and people are going to listen once and they're going to remember everything we said.
Yeah.
Healed.
Yeah. That's why everyone should listen to it 3 times.
Yes, exactly. And by listening to something passively like this, you are literally retaining 5 to 7%. That's it. And the way you amp that up is through repetition. It's through speaking it. It's through teaching it to someone else, right? So you start picking any one topic, and, communication being one. Maybe it's a couple of the options that we just listed. Maybe it is the leadership team within itself doesn't communicate well because there's too much ego, or certain people don't understand the other people's perspectives. I mean, human beings are complicated. We're always looking at things through the lens of what our greatest pain is and what our greatest goals are. And we all have our own agendas. Every single one of us has an agenda. And so we operate in a way to get that agenda met. And most of the time we don't think about it like that, because that sounds, oh no, that's not what we do, but it's exactly what we do. Yeah. So it is interesting to see. So like in little bit longer term programs, or when I create these processes, I really love to start with communication, because it's such a good baseline for all things to grow from.
So, and then what else do you work on after you get that kind of like that base understanding?
Yeah. There are a number of big topics, right? So there could be topics such as learning how to build your influence. So now let's say you figured out how to talk, or how to start having more awareness about how people hear you or see you. Then it's like, how do you build off of that? And that is a skill. So, it used to be like when people would talk about people being in leadership, or, it used to be that people would always say, oh, that person, they just are naturally good, or they'll take an assessment and it will be like, oh, no, this assessment says this person can't do it, black and white. And it's just not true. I mean, at the beginning of my career, I thought that was true. Now, certain personalities have an easier time learning and adapting to something, but anybody can improve their leadership. Anybody can improve their own personal brand, or how they show up in their role. Yeah,
we've talked about that before, how it's like introverts are often like said to not be good leaders, even though most of the most successful leaders around the world are introverts.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that's so funny that you say that, and I guess that's actually true, isn't it? Yeah. So that would be a really common thing that I would build off of, right? It's like, first teach you how you're talking, how you're showing up. Are people able to hear you? And then build off of, now that you know this, how can you get better? How can you start building off of the rapport that you have, the relationships that you have? How can you start building, some of that influence?
There you're teaching them a lot of the stuff that we talk about in self-awareness, right?
Yes.
Like you're using the leadership development program
or platform
as a platform for you to talk about self-awareness with people in a business context.
100%. And I used to do all those assessments, and I told you that. I mean, I don't know how many personality assessments I've without question, 250,000, maybe more in the course of 20 years. I mean, without question, at least that. And then also
and you can recall almost all of those people. It's unreal.
Yeah, unless it starts to encumber my 1980s lyrics, then we're gonna start dumping those assessment results. That's it. I make a clear line. And then like 360 assessments, which are a much deeper dive about how a person, how they show up, what their personal brand is. In their leadership, are they trustworthy? Are they loyal? Do people like them? All of those things.
Are you still doing 360s in those environments?
Yeah. Yep.
That's for some reason, I actually kind of thought maybe that 360s were like a tool du jour that has now passed its popularity or something, but maybe not.
Well, I think, they're hugely beneficial if they're administered properly, which, I make it my business to administer these things well, very, very well.
I had no doubt that yours was administered properly.
I'm right in the middle of doing 30 of them right now, so it's kind of like, but I think even with 360s, which is a deeper dive, so if people are listening and they don't know what that is, it's a deeper assessment in which all these anonymous people, you ask people to rate you, and all these people anonymously are able to tell you exactly how they see you. And that's a much deeper dive than a quick disc or a quick personality tool, right? And yet, so much learning happens, so much more learning happens. And then that person can create individual development plans for themselves to start taking more ownership about their own growth. So like some of these programs, they start with me carrying that ownership. And then there's a transfer of ownership as they become more confident in their own ability to grow themselves. I mean, that's, I think, what we're talking about is I don't really think even in all the years of school, like think about your education, how much of that was focused on you as a person? How much of that was focused on you interacting with others? Most of it was skill-based, math, social studies, science, so we really hadn't learned in a really open environment a way to take something on ourselves and then see what we look like as we start to manifest some changes. It's so beautiful to watch.
Yeah, the whole 360 feedback thing, I think is great because a lot of times, when we don't know how others perceive us unless they tell us that.
Exactly.
And one thing that Michael Alasso was talking about when he was on about his role as a director is to give the actors that feedback loop.
Yes.
But
yes, that's
usually
right.
we don't have, and so usually we don't have that kind of feedback loop. So that 360 is a really good feedback loop.
Yeah.
I wonder if you should run one should you run one at my house with my wife and kids?
I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon.
We're gonna.
No.
That's no. That does not apply to your personal life.
No. No. Amber, I got you. I'm just in case she's listening.
AJ's trying to bring home business tools and apply them to the family again. I know my family strategic planning sessions didn't really hit very well either.
I tried that once too. I tried that using cards even. Oh, for God's sake.
Let's figure out where our core values are
as
based
a
on
family.
These corporate performance cards.
Wow, we're really ranking low, kids. What are you going to do about it, you 6-year-old?
I'm
Get
gonna
busy.
put you on a performance improvement plan. You talk to HR later.
You better be scared because everybody else is. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. No, I love doing these 360s, and I think what ends up happening is, you talk about this transfer of ownership, right? Where you do get to see, because everybody thinks they have a really good idea about how they show up. Most of the time we think, oh, this is exactly how we are.
Oh, totally. I for sure think I know how other people perceive me, except I've been working with you long enough to know that is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, me too. I've reached a whole new plateau of this. For me, I'm so unaware of how I show up with other people because I'm just so intended on just focusing on being me, right? Not judging and getting this extra validation. I'm so working on it so hard. Now I'm kind of scared. If I go in public, or we were at your son's graduation party not that long ago, okay? And I was in there talking with these people, and I felt this genuine fear, oh my, these people have been listening. What if I've said something that's, if that hasn't,
right.
Oh my gosh, how do I show up? And then I thought, oh dear God, don't even think about that. Don't go there. Just don't go there.
You're about to spiral.
But I think once we become really aware, and then we courageously ask other people to tell us how they see us. And these other people know, like, and trust us enough to give us feedback that's real. This is where it becomes magic. This is where huge growth happens. And that's why I'm saying you can't really accomplish that in a 6-hour seminar. I mean, yes, you can bring attention to certain things, and you might teach interesting, facts or features, but this kind of really deep growth does take consistency and time and focus. But I'm telling you, in all the years,
what have you seen? You're halfway through with these same groups of people.
With this group.
And so how have you seen those individuals change?
Okay, I'm gonna sound. Don't make fun of me because I'm gonna gush. Okay? And I'm being so authentic, and I'm gonna try not to cry because these people have come from a place where they would not speak in the room where all of their peers were because they were so shy or afraid of saying the wrong thing, or judging themselves so harshly. And I don't know if you remember, I had everybody do their own personal brand speech. Okay, do you remember that? Everyone in the group had to do a 5-minute speech on themselves. And there was sheer terror. There was sheer terror for people to speak, not only to speak in public, but to speak about themselves. It really caused it caused a big, huge ruckus for people. You take the same group of people, and now we are, I don't know, several months past it. These people are standing up to their team, with their teams, and speaking on behalf of some other people in the room with support. They are sharing their opinions without any care in the world, without even thinking that it's awkward, and just their willingness to try some of the stuff that they are learning, and then be willing to talk about, yeah, I tried this and this is what happened, and I'm really proud of myself. The language that people are using now, it is so mind-blowing. Every one of these sessions that I do, and there's multiple sessions throughout this year. Every single session that I'm doing, without question, I get goosebumps at least once because I cannot believe how much people are growing. I cannot believe it. It's so fun.
When you're describing what the fear was before,
yeah.
I mean, frankly, to me, that sounds like, was that like kind of like a bad work culture? Like, what was happening in the culture of that company that was causing people to be afraid to speak or be afraid, not comfortable? And then what happened culturally in that company that you helped change?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, and the answer, which is not going to be what you expect, it had nothing to do with the company or the culture. The cultures in all of these businesses is quite amazing. You know what it was? It is, what do you think the number one fear in human beings is? It's
like a quiz.
Okay, I'll just tell you because we don't have enough time.
Shelter, acceptance, I don't know, the hierarchy of needs.
Public speaking.
Oh.
Public speaking is the number one fear. And do you know what the number two fear is? Death. I'm not kidding.
I would rather die than speak in front of a crowd.
I'm sure this is where high schoolers got that phrase. I mean, it had to have been, right? I'd rather die than do this. I'd rather die than do that. Turns out it's the second.
Yeah, except for the aforementioned sales team who you can't get to shut up in front of everybody. Please let someone else talk, sales team.
What are you going to be such a buzzkill, JJ? You just don't understand. Oh, but yeah, so no, it had nothing to do with the company. It had nothing to do with the culture of the company. It was absolutely every single individual person was scared to death to have to speak in front of their peers. And that was a very, very real thing.
Interesting.
And what's here in this, here's what's even more amazing about it. Like in just this particular group, like I've done this quite a few times, but in this particular group, let's say there's 125 people. The one of the top feedback items that they said at the end of the year survey, what did you like the most? I would say, I don't remember the number now because it's been a while, but it was over 40% said the number one thing they liked the most were the speeches. So think about that.
Their peer speeches, their peers. Yeah.
They enjoyed the exercise because they felt so much more connected to the people around them. They learned so much about other people. They also learned that they could speak and that
people bond over traumatic events.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to get everybody.
Nice method, Melissa. I just scare the crap out of everybody, and then they'll all be bonded together.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. So anyway, that's one of the core things. Is like people being able to connect with each other, people being able to realize that, oh my gosh, I can do things that are hard. I can do scary things. And
the undertone there is confidence. Like you gave them a platform to explore confidence.
Yes. And they took it. They took it. Out of
not a single
group.
One of them just like ghosted out of the room and disappeared. Like, Melissa's coming next month. Oh yeah, I got this trip. I gotta go on.
A couple did, but it was I think one or two. And I always like lovingly refer to my favorite comment in the whole program is when I assigned that we were doing this. Gentleman came up to me and said, and he was very upset, and he said, "You have ruined my life. You have ruined my life with this project." I was like, "I can assure you, I have not." And at the end of it, he came up and said it was the best experience, and that I didn't ruin his life. And I said, I know I didn't, but thank you for recognizing that I didn't. It's not me. That's the thing is like people feel so grateful when they've burst through their own terror bubbles or when they grow to a next level up. It's such an expansive feeling. Like you feel so good about yourself when you've learned something, when you feel that you've changed. It's just so amazing to feel that way. And what is amazing too is the number of people that try to put the credit on me. I think it's a natural human instinct to be like, this is, I feel so much better and you did this, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me doing that work. It was them doing that work. And, and then teaching people to be able to live in themselves with pride and grace and to have more mercy with other people that are struggling with some of the exact same things to get them to where they are now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So what would you like observe of some like results as people have kind of gone through the program? You've seen them grow in self-awareness and self-confidence, and how do you see them now, or how does it help them at their work, at work or at home?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think many of them are much more confident leaders, and so what that confidence translates to, this is going to sound crazy, but it'll make sense, I hope. That confidence translates to being more flexible, to being able to be more gray instead of so black and white. The more leaders begin their own journey of self-confidence and self-esteem and self-awareness, the more able they are to have grace with their people and to see when those people are struggling, and rather than judge them and get hard on them, like which they may have done before because they were relying on rules and policies to get people to do stuff. They weren't relying on relationship. They weren't relying on their ability to have partnership with someone. And the more you feel confidence about that, the greater the opportunity is for people to have those deeper connections. And, you look at any leadership program anywhere, whether it be through a huge academic society or whether it be grassroots, the ability to get along with people, the ability to be in partnership with people far outweighs any skill-based task that you may be good at. You're going to go a lot further in leadership if you have that ability. And so this whole program really gets them on that path of being more authentic, more transparent if they know something, if they don't know something. There's just so transparency, confidence, humor. And I always say, listen, just let's not judge, let's observe. Like that's one of the key things I'm saying all the time. And I say it with you too, like on the pod. It's like the more that you can not judge and you can be observational, it's so expansive and so much more gets done so much faster and so much better.
Just makes like work and everyday life easier. Like everything just is easier, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a really fun journey. And
that does sound fun. Your job sounds fun.
It is so fun. It is fun. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And I'm recognizing how much,
since you're only halfway through, by the end of the program, they'll be like levitating.
Well, we're going for it. We're going to go for it.
Go big. Go big.
Yeah, I'm looking for national syndicated television programs that are interested in following our journey at this point. Who knows? We may be on the BBC or National Geographic, breaking down all the barriers in leadership and self-awareness. Anyway, I guess just, kind of as a wrap here, I think I just would really like to encourage people to always be open to learning. Stay open. Choose something that is gratifying for you. You don't have to choose. And I even say in our programs, it's like, okay, let's try to learn this from the perspective of what feels good to you, not what you think corporate wants. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how can you be your best you, and what parts of this feel the best for you to explore for your next bit of learning. And I just encourage people to have that attitude. Choose something, that is interesting for you, that you might know is a little bit of a soft spot for you and you want to get better at it, but you have shame or guilt. It's like, you don't have to feel the shame or the guilt. How about just be interested and curious about what is possible for you if you spent just a little time attached to it for a bit. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good work.
Oh, it's so
what's funny?
Great.
What's funny is I think we talk a lot. We're not talking a lot, maybe specifically about my work, but I have a lot of work stories that we talk about. We don't get to talk about your work stories all that much, so I'm glad we got to talk about some of your work stories.
Oh, thanks.
So, it's awesome. It's inspiring. It's awesome that you can bring self-awareness to so many people, not only here, but in your day-to-day work.
Well, thank you. I am a lifelong learner, and I now practically wear that and happily wear that badge, where I used to be like, I'm trying to learn, and I would sometimes feel a little guilty, like I wasn't good enough, and that's why I needed to learn. But as we're sitting here talking, I'm looking at this new book that I've started reading, and I absolutely love it, called The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. It's like, there's so many interesting things to explore.
Always so much to learn.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.